Welcome to Real-ationship Goals, a podcast all about the realities of healthy relationships. Real-ationship Goals is a project of the Advocacy Center for Crime Victims and Children in Waco, Texas. If you or someone you know has experienced sexual violence or harassment and is seeking support, services, or needs more information, links to resources and our hotline number can be found in the description. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of their organizations or affiliates. Welcome back to Real-ationship Goals, Season 4. Can you believe we have 4 seasons of this podcast?
I know.
That's wild. Season 4, this is episode 1. You know, we always say this, go back and listen to the previous seasons. That'll both give you like an idea of the format of our podcast, and we'll reference other seasons and other episodes this season. But my name is Allie.
I'm Arianna.
I'm Blythe.
And I'm Kyla.
And we're excited to be with you all for another season of Relationship Goals, and we hope you enjoy it. Woohoo!
Okay, y'all, I have a story today. And it's very cringy, but I'm excited to share it. So I'm gonna take us back to high school days. So I grew up in Illinois, and in Illinois, it's required for high school students to take a health class. I was not excited by this idea, so I was like, I'm gonna get it away with, or I'm gonna get this over with as quickly as possible. So I took it my freshman year instead of the normal like required sophomore year, which meant that like I didn't know anybody in this class. So I was just like I was like, health class is awkward. I don't know anyone. This is more awkward. But I was really grateful that like by the end of the class, I had made friends with someone who I'm gonna call Ty. Change some names, respect some privacy. We're gonna call him Ty. And we became like pretty good friends. I could not drive at the time as a wee freshman. And he was a sophomore. I don't think also drove. I don't actually know. Ty, did you drive? We'll never know. Anyway, so like we didn't really like hang out after school or anything like that, but like we became good friends. We talked a lot. And not just freshman year, but also like through the summer, and then like sophomore year afterwards, was really sweet. He was a good buddy of mine. And so fast forward, I'm in world history class, my sophomore year, spring semester. He is doing whatever you do as a junior, spring semester. So I'm in my history class with Mr. Anderson, and all of a sudden a knock comes on the door. Normally like student or some other student like from an office will like have to pull another student out. It's like, you need to go talk to Mr. or Mrs. XYZ to do whatever. And so my name got called, and I was like, does my brother need something? He was a freshman at the time. Do I need to go somewhere? Lo and behold, I walk into the hallway, and do you know who was there? Ty, with a guitar in a chair. And I walk out, and I'm like, oh no. And what starts happening, and so the guitar is strumming, and he sings a song that he wrote asking me to prom.
Oh no.
Okay, about 30 seconds in, it felt like an hour, but about 30 seconds in, the teacher in the classroom next door, Mr. Mitchell, comes out into the hallway. A phenomenal man, like got to know him the following year. I wish him the best. Is very flustered, like, what are you two doing? You are making a ruckus in the hallway. Go back to class. And so then, of course, the guitar playing stops. Ty asked me, will you go to prom with me? I'm internally panicking, right? Because one, Ty's great. I like him as a friend. This could just be an invitation to a friend, but I have no idea. Number 2, I don't love school dances. I told myself I would go to one homecoming and one prom, and that is it. Because that is not my function. Number 3, I like know other like juniors and seniors, but I'm not like close with them. And so the idea of going to a function that I don't want to be at with someone who I do enjoy the presence of, but like not other people, also sounded terrible. So in my internal panicking, I looked at Ty and I said, no, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna go back to class now. And then, and then I walked back into my class, 2 eyeballs staring at me. I said nothing for the rest of the period, sat down, and then Ty never talked to me again.
Oh no.
Which was sad. I respect his decision and like that boundary, which also made me sad, right? Like I reached out several times, but it was like, don't want to talk to me. So yeah, that was my story for the day.
Oh,
That's a true nightmare.
Yeah. Oh, that's every part of that is really hard.
Yes.
Thank you for your bravery and your vulnerability in sharing that
Thank you.
high school story.
Oh,
with
yeah.
us. As soon as you said you're taking us back to high school, I said, oh no, where's this gonna go?
Yeah.
But so today we're going to be talking about rejection, which is unfortunately in every part of our lives. It's in our personal lives and our professional lives. And oftentimes we find ourselves both at the receiving hand of rejection and then also the giving hand, where we are forced to reject other people in one way or another. So what do we have?
Oh, rejection is tough. What
Mhm.
This is just a quick poll here. Would you rather be rejected or reject someone? Okay,
That
so
is
who would rather reject someone?
That's an easy one for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man. Would you rather be rejected? I'd rather be rejected.
I don't want to be the rejected.
Yeah. Okay, so we're split 50-50. Okay. All right, we can move forward now. I just needed to know where we were,
Yeah.
and
I guess the poll is a good indicator that both can be really, really hard.
Mhm.
I think part of it depends on how much you're invested in something. If I don't know, if someone shoots their shot and asks somebody out on a date or something like that, for example, but they were like, hey, that'd be fun. But if it doesn't happen, I'm not that emotionally invested in it. That's a different response to rejection than, I don't say you were going for a job and you were so excited about it. And you made it through every step of the interview process, but just at the end, you didn't get the job. That might feel worse. And maybe it also depends on our experiences of both being rejected and rejecting, being the rejecter. I mean, both suck, but
yeah. I think that is what you're saying. There's another kind of piece of how the four of us are experiencing rejection or rejecting differently is rejection. So you talked about a job, maybe we applied for the same job and we both got rejected at the same stage. We had both had the same amount of hope in it or whatever, but my reaction to that rejection might be different than yours, and it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be super disappointed and I should be whatever, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Right. It just means that there's no right. I mean, we'll talk about healthy and unhealthy ways to respond to rejection, but there's no right or wrong way to feel necessarily about being rejected.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, and
check out
if it's in the healthy camp of a response to rejection, there's not the hierarchy of the superior rejection is to be I'm not emotionally affected by it. And you might not be, but it's not better or worse to be really invested in something or really hurt by it. Yeah, when y'all think of okay, so that was say healthy versus unhealthy, safe versus unsafe responses to rejection, or to being rejected. What are some of those? Do you think unhealthy, unhelpful, harmful ways that somebody could respond to that?
Okay, sorry, I'm just clarifying. Are we talking about the receiving?
Yes,
Rejection?
if you are receiving rejection,
okay.
yeah.
Unhealthy ways to respond to that. Not taking no for an answer
Mm-hmm.
feels pretty unhealthy and also spooky. So that comes to my mind.
Yeah, that kind of makes it lean towards stalking that person for not taking no for an answer, which becomes very dangerous. And also another unhealthy way of not receiving rejection well is threatening someone. So saying very mean things to them when you see them around just because you were rejected. I mean, comes with the territory. This is life. And there are healthier ways to respond to rejection, and sometimes it's hard to just accept that, but we don't want to threaten anyone.
Yeah, when you were talking about that, I was thinking about talking with students specifically about teen dating violence and attempts to kind of get out of that type of relationship. And I think this is maybe I might have been the only one who's thinking this way, but when I have been thinking about rejection as we've been talking about this, is an initial rejection. I ask someone to prom, they say no. I apply for a job, they say no. But rejection doesn't have to happen at as a beginning point or as a beginning thing, right? It can also happen at what you want the end of a relationship to be, right? That's still rejection, is I don't want to be in a relationship with you anymore. And then I was thinking about ways that, especially if a relationship is really unhealthy or abusive, that's a really difficult that's where I think we see a lot of like threats and
Mhm.
stalking or like ultimatums
Mhm.
or things like that happening.
Yeah.
Um, I think too, Kyla clarified, we're talking about how like unhealthy like behaviors if you're rejected, but
Mhm.
what about like healthy or unhealthy ways to like do the rejecting? Because that's also part of being in a relationship with people. What do y'all think about that?
Ooh, I mean, let's see. I mean, we talk a lot, right, about like a core of what respect means, showing somebody respect is honoring that they are a human being who has as much worth and dignity that you do. And so like in our rejecting, emphasizing someone's humanity still, right? They're not an object, they're not lesser. You can still be maybe like really angry with someone and like rightfully so. But that doesn't necessarily give us permission to belittle them, demean them like in our rejecting. Like we can still like clear as kind, we can still be super clear, like, no, this is not happening. And depending on like the safety of the circumstance, it can be done in person, it can be done through a text or something like that, like whatever is most safe. But I think, yeah, Allie, I'm realizing you might have asked the opposite question of like what is unhelpful in rejecting someone. And
Unhealthy
No, I
and
mean,
healthy.
yeah, I think I
Yeah.
said healthy and unhealthy, and I think
Okay.
when you talk about what's healthy or it's like
So yeah, so the healthy thing, treat somebody like a human being. The
Yeah,
unhealthy thing,
yeah.
don't belittle someone as you are rejecting them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's important too to bring in kind of like safety in all of this rejecting or being rejected, right? Like if you're the one doing the rejecting, I think again about kind of like having the conversation around abuse or teen dating violence and having a like safety plan if you think you might be in danger, right? Like it's okay to, I was listening to like it's a little for me a little cold if you're like trying to break up with someone like via text in a like safe relationship, right? Like let's have I don't know that maybe it's just me, but anyway, but if like that feels like the safest way that you can do that, the safest way that you can reject someone, like your safety is more important than like that person feeling like they got the exact closure that they needed or got the opportunity to say and do the things that they want to do. So anyway, I just think it's important to talk about safety in that as well. But
yeah, I think kind of as we're talking, I've been thinking about how, so we said that this season we were talking about uncomfortable feelings in relationships, that rejection is like both something that you feel, like you can feel rejected by someone or something, but it's also like something that is like an action. So it's like both a feeling and an action. And so like, because it's also an action, there are other feelings that like can be associated with it, either the act of rejecting someone or like being rejected. I don't have any on the top of my head, but like, what are like, the co-occurring like feelings? Like, do you think of rejection?
I think the co-occurring feelings are like feeling shameful, resentful sometimes. Like, rejection is hard on people, and sometimes a person can become resentful towards that person just for rejecting them.
I think it's important those are good. And I think, I said earlier, like rejection can happen at any point in a relationship. And so, we're talking about like, no, I won't go to prom with you. We need to break up. You're not getting a job. Right. But there's also like sort of like micro rejections throughout relationships. So it's like, maybe you're in a romantic relationship with someone and you're like, hey, can we hang out tonight? And they say, no, we can't. Or it says, hey, I really need to like vent about something. And they're like, I don't have the capacity for that right now. And it's like, that is rejection, right? And so how do you, and that still feels like this maybe disappointment or anger potentially, or embarrassment, to be like, well, I thought that we're doing a thing here, and now I've been put in the position where I guess I was wrong, or that sort of thing. So I think as we talk about rejection, it's like what feels like very, I won't say what feels like, what is like big rejection or what is sort of like micro rejections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes me think how closely like rejection and consent are like intertwined. And how I think we've mentioned before, like healthy relationships are something that we all have to learn, or like however we do relationships, like that is something that's learned. And so like we can learn to handle rejection well, especially like I like to use the word micro rejection. You should trademark that.
I'm sure someone else smarter than me has already thought of it.
Oh, well, if not, you heard it here first. But yeah, like I lost my train of thought. But yeah, especially micro rejections, like we can like practice and like learn like how to do that well through like the practice of like consent, and how important, especially for like thinking of like whether it's parents or people of influence in like the lives of youth, like how good and important it is to like model that daily of like, hey, can I have a hug? Not right now, I'm doing the dishes, but I'd love to give you one after I'm done with this. And then like, yeah, practicing saying that like, okay, like I can like accept that or something like that. I don't know if there are other ways to like model how to like give or receive rejection. But yeah, that was something I was thinking of. But yeah, really good, and we need to model. Also, I'll just plug the consent episode from episode 1 or from season 1. Yeah.
I also just wanted to point out like another healthy way of responding to rejection is like thinking of yourself, because sometimes rejection can make you like be very critical and change your like self-esteem and your mood. And also just like as tempting as it can be, don't self-criticize, because not taking rejection personally, just like understanding that people do that sometimes to fit their circumstances. So when you don't take it personally, it can help improve your self-esteem, your mood, just like understanding that, hey, this might not be for me, and that is okay. And I will be okay with that. So, yeah.
And I think sometimes it also, like the ways that we respond to rejection can kind of hinge upon like the emotional investment that we have in a thing. Cause like kind of like we talked about earlier, like maybe you both applied for the same job and one of you is like really passionate about it, really wants a job, and somebody else might just be like, oh, well, you know, a job is a job. I'm just kind of looking for something right now. And if you both get rejected, that means you're both going to respond to that differently. So I think that it's just always important in all these things, no matter like what emotional investment you have whenever you're experiencing rejection, of just to kind of like continue like reflecting on those feelings and those experiences and allowing yourself to feel feelings. There's never anything wrong with feeling feelings. It's how we respond to those feelings that creates that problem. So accepting no as that answer, and then taking the time to process those feelings in a healthy way, possibly with a therapist. We love therapy.
Yeah. Great. Well, every week, as you know, at this point, we bring you a relationship goal, some way to apply what we have been talking about this next week, or we hope you take it further than the week. But so this week's relationship goal has 2 parts. First, say no to something that you can't or don't want to do, and feel how you want to feel about that, but also give yourself permission to do that, right? Because it's okay to say no. And second, if rejection comes this week, pause, take a deep breath, and just start with, okay, it's okay. Or and do some kind of reflecting on those feelings and think about some of the things we've talked about moving forward with rejection. And Arianna has our recommendation this week.
Yes, I do. If you have not gone yet to the movies to go see Avatar 2, The Way of the Water, I recommend you go do that. I plan on doing that. I've not seen it.
So this is like a pre-recommendation.
Okay.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, thank you all for tuning into the first episode of season 4. We look forward to you being with us all season long. We have some great content coming your way. So we hope to see you next time. Thanks so much for tuning into Real-ationship Goals. This episode was produced by the Prevention and Education Department of the Advocacy Center for Crime Victims and Children in Waco, Texas. You can follow us on Instagram at ACCVC_prevention. See you next time.